Welcome to this Tafsili Tajziya, our detailed explainer of John Steinbeck's masterpiece, The Pearl. Close your eyes for just a second. Picture the calm, peaceful scenery of the coastal brush houses early in the morning. You can almost hear the ocean, right? The gentle sounds of a family waking up. But beneath that beautiful surface, a massive storm of greed and exploitation is brewing. Today, we're taking a chronological journey through all 31 crucial questions that unpack the deep socio-economic themes of this incredible story. Let's get right into it.
To keep our journey super clear, we've broken this analysis down into 5 main chapters. Pelahissa, greed replaces family harmony. Dusra, capitalism and colonial oppression. Tisra, surveillance and systemic traps. Chauta, alienation and violent defiance. And finally, Panchwanhissa, class war and tragic retreat. We're going to use these 5 sections to navigate the entire list of questions sequentially.
Chapter 1. Greed replaces family harmony. This is where we see that stark, heartbreaking contrast between the peaceful coastal scenery where Kino and Juana live and the devastating psychological disruption that's about to totally upend their world.
Starting right off with question 1, we look at Kino's Song of the Family. This song represents communal harmony, tahafuz, which means safety and mutual care. It is his true human nature. But the second that Pearl enters his life, it's instantly replaced by the Song of Evil. The Pearl brings lalanch, pure greed, and this intense paranoia, creating an individualistic isolation that completely cuts Kino off from his community.
Okay, let's dive into questions 2 and 3, where we face the dark reality of human worth under capitalism, or sarmayadari nizam. For question 2, look at the doctor. He flat out refuses to treat Kino's dying baby without payment. He literally asks, has he any money? It brutally shows that basic human survival has zero value unless it can be bought. And then for question 3, look at the beggars outside the church. They instantly judge Kino's worth just by scanning his old blanket and Juana's torn shawl. In this deeply stratified society, a human's value is calculated entirely by their visible economic status. Insan ki kima paise se lagai jati hai. Your worth is literally just your price tag.
Moving right along to Chapter 2, Capitalism and Colonial Oppression. Now verbally shift the background scenery with me. We are no longer at those natural, breezy brush houses. Instead, imagine the imposing, heavy stone gates of the colonial town, structures built specifically to keep people out and keep power hoarded inside.
This brings us to a really interesting cluster of questions, 4, 5, and 6, exploring just how deep this oppression goes. Question 4 highlights Zanigalba, or cultural hegemony. Kino feels this deep, inherited fear and anger at the doctor's gate, a direct result of 400 years of colonial oppression. I mean, he even subconsciously takes off his hat in submission. And the indigenous servant? He refuses to speak his native language, erasing his own identity to align with the colonizer. Moving to question 5, why does the Pearl seem magical? Well, because the entire town attaches their own selfish desires to it. It becomes this blank canvas for collective greed. And question 6 asks, does this hunger for wealth cause separation? Oh, absolutely. It shatters the village's unity. Neighbors stop being a support system and instantly become competitive, jealous rivals.
And this brilliantly illustrates how capitalism just infects the mind. Looking at question 7, we see the capitalist illusion. Joanna's homemade seaweed remedy is actually highly effective, but it's totally ignored. Why? Because it's free. It doesn't have a price tag, so society deems it worthless. Crazy, right? Question 8 shows Kino's psychological toll. He literally builds a shell of hardness to protect his property. It keeps the thieves out, sure, but it completely cuts him off from his own gentle nature, turning him into a violent animal. And for question 9, we revisit that servant. By refusing his native tongue, he's internalizing the ruling class's culture, using the oppressor's language to assert superiority over his own people. Apli hi logo par rob dalne ke liye.
This brings us to a vital concept for questions 10 and 11, false consciousness. Basically, this means mistakenly adopting the material values of the people oppressing you, genuinely thinking it'll set you free. Question 10 exposes the priest. He only visits after hearing about the Pearl, subtly manipulating religion to remind Kino of his duties to the church. He basically just wants a financial cut. Question 11 looks at Kino himself. His dream of buying a rifle and getting a colonial education, that is false consciousness. He mistakenly believes that adopting the material values of his oppressors is his actual ticket to freedom.
Question 12 asks about the town itself. Steinbeck describes it as a colonial animal. Picture this eerie scenery.
The town functions like an organic, predatory nervous system where news travels instantly. But it's totally conflicted. The rich head, the stone town, literally feeds on and exploits the poor limbs, which are the brush houses.
Let's transition into our third chapter, surveillance and systemic traps. Picture a deeply paranoid town, people whispering in the dark, watching from the shadows. Every single move is being calculated.
In question 13, we turn to Juana's profound wisdom. She sees the pearl like a sin. What we say, gonakitara dektie. She understands perfectly that this physical object of immense wealth will inevitably invite human malice, greed, and ultimately destroy their family. It's a remarkably practical, grounded understanding of the pearl's destructive nature.
Now, what's really interesting about question 14 is whether this collective surveillance acts as a repressive force. The answer is a massive yes. The community functions as a panopticon, a system of constant watching and whispering. This continuous monitoring is specifically designed to enforce conformity and crush any attempt Kino makes to break out of his assigned low social class.
Question 15 exposes the market trap. The pearl buyers sit in their offices pretending to be independent rivals, but in reality, they secretly conspire to fix low prices. This is a direct, undeniable metaphor for a rigged economic system, a maliati jiao, designed specifically to systematically exploit working-class labor.
For question 16, we get this incredibly powerful quote from Kino's brother, Juan Tomas. "We have been cheated from birth to the overcharge on our coffins." This reveals his deeply ingrained class consciousness. He fully gets that their economic exploitation isn't just bad luck, it is a permanent, deliberately organized system. Questions 17, 18, and 19 reveal exactly how this oppressive structure defends itself. For question 17, the neighbors' envy shows their false consciousness. Instead of uniting with Kino against the corrupt buyers, they're divided by selfish speculation. They totally fail to see their shared class interests. For question 18, the priest's sermon weaponizes religion, defending colonization by framing their poverty as God's divine will, literally telling them to stay in their posts. And question 19 asks about the whole structure Juan Tomas fears Kino is defying. This structure is the rigid racial and colonial hierarchy. By bypassing the local buyers, Kino isn't just making a simple sale, he is threatening a system-wide rebellion.
Shifting gears to Chapter 4, Alienation and Violent Defiance. The scenery here becomes frantic and terrifying. We move from whispered threats to the crackling flames of Kino's burning home, forcing him out into the wild as a hunted outlaw.
Question 20 asks about the burning of Kino's house. This is not just a random act of vandalism. It represents the raw, violent enforcement of the class structure. When economic manipulation fails, the ruling class resorts to physical terror, jismani tashaddud, to literally crush any challenger.
So the crucial point in question 21 is seeing Kino's complete and total alienation. He's alienated from his family, transforming from a loving protector into a paranoid, dangerous threat to them. He's alienated from his labor, he completely stops fishing and views the ocean solely as a place to defend his commodity. And he's alienated from his community, becoming a targeted outlaw forced into utter isolation.
In question 22, we see exactly how the pearl acts as a catalyst for violence, perfectly exemplifying capital's corrupting influence. Think about it. The pearl is pure capital. It has zero actual survival utility. You can't eat it, it won't keep you warm. But this obsession with abstract wealth entirely corrupts human morality, turning once peaceful relationships into a bloody, violent struggle for ownership.
As we look at questions 23 and 24, watch what happens as they flee into the barren, jagged mountains at night. We see their total ejection from society. The town is no longer a sanctuary. Human structures have become purely predatory, forcing them into the wild. But at dawn, as question 24 notes, an ancient thing stirs in Kino. He sheds the submissive habits of generations of colonial rule and reclaims his people's ancestral pre-colonial instincts for survival. Wo apni asli fitrat ki taraf wapas lorta hai. He returns to his true, raw nature.
We now enter our final chapter, Class War and Tragic Retreat. Prepare for the ultimate, heartbreaking confrontation up in the high, jagged mountains, and the devastating return to the ocean.
As the danger peaks, questions 25 through 27 highlight a major clash of mentalities. Question 25 points out Juana's pragmatism.
When she says the dealers might be right, that's not false consciousness. She knows the dealers hold all the systemic power, and she is prioritizing survival over a hopeless protest. Question 26 looks at Kino's patriarchal pride. His offer to sacrifice himself fulfills that lone male savior role, stubbornly ignoring the fact that the trackers would kill his whole family anyway. And question 27 explains why the music of the Pearl turns sinister. A poor man's capitalist dream is inherently poisoned because protecting wealth in an unequal society absolutely demands violence and paranoia. Khab Zahar Alud Hojatahe. The dream is poisoned.
Let's see how this builds into a devastating climax for questions 28 and 29. The final confrontation in the mountains is a literalized metaphor for class war, Tab Kedi Jung. You literally have armed trackers representing the predatory forces of the system, hunting an exploited desperate worker. And in question 29, when Kino finally looks at the pearl, he sees only evil faces. Because its value is reduced entirely to a market price, its human utility is completely destroyed. It only reflects the physical trauma, murder, and abuse it caused.
This brings us to question 30. Does throwing the pearl back into the ocean constitute a true revolution against the system? The answer is no. It is a retreat. It's a personal renunciation. Discarding the pearl doesn't change the corrupt colonial system one bit, but it does allow Kino and Joanna to step outside that cycle of greed and reclaim their lost humanity.
We conclude our Tafsili Tagsia with question 31. Was this tragic ending inevitable? Yes, it is structurally inevitable. The entire novel is a parable demonstrating that a colonized worker simply cannot peacefully achieve wealth in a rigged capitalist society. If Kino submitted, he remained exploited. By defying the system, he guaranteed his own violent destruction. It leaves us with a profound question to ponder. In a world where the system itself is the trap, is true freedom ever achievable without completely dismantling the structure? Think about that, and keep seeking the truth behind the stories.